Hello my friends and welcome. As I promised you, we have some of the positive news. For example, FP2 drones of Ukrainian army hit the Russian oil storage facilities not far away from Feodosia. We have this image showing the drone camera. Those are the FP2 drones, and you see they hit the remaining tanks of this oil storage. Previously, Ukraine hit this facility 2 of the times, at least there was the huge fire, and you might see that some of the tanks were destroyed before, but several left. So there was the job for Ukrainian FP2 drones. The remaining tanks were annihilated. All of the strikes continue. At least 3 of the tanks were hit. What is interesting that the distance from the Frontline, Ukrainian controlled territory, till that oil storage is 250 kilometers. But previously it was said that the range of FP2 drones is 200 kilometers. And that means that the actual range of the drones is higher. 250 is good. Also in Crimea, Ukraine hit several hangars with Russian drones Orions. This drone is the analog of the Bayraktar TB2. This is the drone itself, and it was spotted several times flying in Ukrainian airspace. Ukraine also several times shot those down. As for Russia, probably it's the most sophisticated drone they have. And in Crimea, they stored them in those hangars. The operation was performed by the Magyar Birds, a very successful unit. Also in Russia itself, Nizhnekamsk, something happened to the big oil refinery. Somehow it caught fire. Locals report that they heard the sound looks like a jet airplane flying, and I guess I know what happened there. Yeah, that's the part of the infrastructure. We have the geolocation and ident of the image. According to the information, even right now fire continues there. Firefighters cannot handle it. And you see what this morning flown from Ukraine? That's the cruise missile. And then one more. And probably, yeah, one more. Flying somewhere. This is Flamingo. At least 3 of the missiles were launched. I guess those missiles also hit the Orlovskaya TETs. There is the big hole in this building. Again, image geolocated, confirmed, successful use of Flamingo. Already 4 successful use. I'm counting those. But totally there were numerous of the launches, so the effectiveness of the missile is roughly 20% if we speak about precision and the vulnerability towards the Russian air defense systems. Well, I cannot confirm that today some of those missiles were shot down by Russian air defense. I'm still checking out the information. If they publish some of the videos with debris lying somewhere outside those main facilities, it means that probably they shut down, especially then you have those shrapnel traces on the skin of the missile, which were shown before in several of the occasions. But here we see this hole, yeah, in the building. Definitely it's not a drone strike, it is a missile. Well, Ukraine also used drones. This is Bars drone, some new modification. Yeah, one more video from Nizhnekamsk. Locals report about substantial damage to the distillation unit of this refinery. There's also the chemical production facilities, some enterprise. Every day Russia suffers the strikes coming from Ukraine. Ukraine even intensified those, using even Flamingo missiles and other tools. Oh, breaking news we have. Russia lost Sukhoi Su-30 SM in the region of Karelia. That's pretty much far away from Ukraine. Crew flatlined. Something happened to this fighter jet. Could be pilot error or something technical. Well, good news. It means that the crew and the airplane will not harm Ukraine any longer. And we have more information. Actually, those pilots were quite experienced. They had 500 military flights, so active combat flights. Just imagine this number, 500. Crazy. Well, for sure, not any longer they will fly, maybe just in the hell. Well, we have also the confirmation from the Russian channels that indeed those forces which were filmed several days ago, I guess 3 days ago, how they enter Pokrovsk from the south, well, all of them are flat-lined. I already showed you the drone image in one of my recent videos. Definitely, all of the vehicles were hit by the drones, and about motorcycles, yeah, there are also some of the images. This new video was shared by our guys. You may see some sort of the motorcycle out there. And this is the Niva vehicle. Okay, this looks like a China card and some other vehicles which Russia took for assault. All of that was filmed in Pokrov's direction. Russians went quite slowly, then weather improved, and they went straight away under strikes, and they themselves confirm it, I mean their military bloggers on their channels. And if we speak about the front lines, there was the counteroffensive maneuver done by our forces from 225th Brigade Skela. Our guys landed in some of the ruined facility there. After it went to the trenches, then again to the ruined buildings and engaged in combat action against Russian infantry. Also, part of the Ukrainian infantry forces crossed even the railways and went to one more big building. How successful this operation was, it's hard to tell, guys. Those encounters are happening every day in Pokrovsk especially, so there is the presence of Ukrainian infantry and the Russian infantry, but Russia is spewing more of the reinforcements, it is understandable. Those are the areas where Ukrainian infantry was spotted. Here is the most south point, this big building, but we have this information with some of the delay. Probably the video itself was filmed a couple of days ago. For now, this entire area is a gray zone, and our guys engaged in fights in the most northern area with the Russians. So occasionally there are some of the spots of the Russian presence, but they're not controlling this area entirely. And as I told you in my previous video, Russians had no chance but to surrender in Dobropillya direction, not far away from Shakhove. This is the very fresh video. Those Russians decided not to fight any longer and to save their own lives, surrendering to Ukraine. Quite a lot of Russians were captured, and Ukraine is not doing those war crimes, as I also mentioned, Russians are doing against Ukrainian soldiers. In my previous video, I told more details about Russian attack to Mirnograd when the Ukrainian forces surrendered, but Russians unalived many of the Ukrainian soldiers, and our military command should account that and not to cause those kind of the pockets to happen as in Pokrov's direction, in Mirnograd, as it was with Avdiivka as well. If you want to know more, just watch my previous video. Russians surrendered in this place. Ukraine advanced quite fast, encircled them, and they had no other choice, but still there is the presence of some of the small Russian army group not far away from Shakhove. They will also surrender. I'm still waiting for the new map update from Analytics and from Deep State military map source. So then I receive it, I will update you on the current situation. But in my previous video, again, I did this analysis. To some political news, there were emails uncovered by some of the Congress members, and it looks like Jeffrey Epstein himself wrote that he claimed he gave Russians insight into Trump, so how to deal with Trump or maybe even manipulate with Trump. He was in touch with the Russian representative in the United Nations, Churkin, and probably gonna record a separate video about it, but not on this channel. I'm gonna upload it on my Captain Dennis channel, because Epstein files is the topic for that one. There are lots of the other messages leaked where Epstein recalled Trump's name several of the times. Oh, German Chancellor Merz is calling Ukrainians to stay in Ukraine and fight. Wow, it's good to be this manager of the human lives of another country, yeah, Merz. Then at the same time, Germany gives some of the military support. More than other countries, I admit, yes, after United States it is the second biggest country if we speak about military, but still it's not enough, Chancellor Merz. Give Ukraine towers, give Ukraine everything needed or everything possible from your side, yeah? And only after that you may tell to Ukrainians, go and sacrifice your youth on the front lines, because we did everything freaking possible. But no, you're not telling this stuff to Syrians, right? You're not telling this stuff to other nations who came to Germany as refugees. You're not telling them, go and fight for your countries, right? It's only for Ukrainians. Why? Because you want to deal with Russia with Ukrainian blood, not even given towers, for example. I don't like politicians, guys, in general, and Merz I honestly also don't like. But he does for Ukraine, I would say, more than previous chancellor. But this guy is not ideal, and he is losing popularity. Unfortunately, AfD. is getting more popular in Germany. Also, Merz said that he wants Zelensky to deal with that issue, so to force somehow Ukrainians to fight. Is it gonna be a democracy in Ukraine if Zelensky does it? He does it, actually. There is a forced mobilization, which doesn't help because Ukrainians simply, if they're mobilized, they're leaving Ukrainian army. And it seems like this official, he doesn't understand that simple thing. That even now, those measures done by Ukrainian government are absolutely not popular within Ukrainian society. It's been rejected by Ukrainian people. No, we need to tie them more. Throw them to the meat grinder, yeah, Merz. Just for Russia not to come to your country. You're gonna sacrifice everyone. He was speaking about young Ukrainian men. How young can they be, Merz? 15 years old? Is it okay for you? I think if Merz doesn't provide towers and overwhelmingly huge military support for Ukraine, he doesn't have the right to say so. It's just my attitude, guys. You may disagree with me. It's normal. I am not saying that I'm 100% correct. I just tell what I think. I'm honest with you, okay? So I think like that, I tell like that. I could be wrong. So don't take my words as something 100% correct, okay? I also don't like the ex-NATO chief Stoltenberg, who is Norwegian, I think, financial minister, and he is against Norway's support or the security loan for the European Union for them to confiscate Russian assets to support the Ukrainian military. He is against it. He says, I will not sign it. No. Yes, he is a finance minister of Norway, say that Norway will not use its sovereign wealth fund as collateral for European Union's proposed loan to Ukraine. There were some ideas that Norway should guarantee the entire amount, but that's not an option, he said. So you see, those bureaucrats, they like to sacrifice Ukrainian lives, but they more take care about their money. I'm speaking about corruption in Ukraine, yeah, in yesterday, big video, and probably there will be one more in 1 month or maybe 2 months, we'll see. But there is the same stuff. Absolute hypocrisy is happening in European Union and also outside the European Union because Norway is outside, yeah? Belgium also against confiscation of the Russian assets. Those bureaucrats, they are collapsing their own countries, I'm telling you. And if Russia attacks European Union, I wouldn't be surprised if they would not be able to secure themselves. I mean, unite against this aggression. Absolutely. They would still think whether we should confiscate Russian money, whether we should continue purchasing Russian oil. They're doing it right now. Purchasing Russian fossil fuels and everything possible. Cooperating with Russia on multiple of the levels. And this idiot, especially this idiot, who said that we should not close the airspace over Ukraine, that the war had just started. He gave the interview. He even wrote the book. Let me show you the front page of it. Jens Stoltenberg, on my watch, leading NATO in a time of war. Where is the war? NATO. Are you participating in the war or what? Just a populist freaking bureaucrat official, not from EU, but within NATO and ugly. Actually, from his own words, it is evident that Biden was fluctuating whether to close the airspace for the Russian missiles and airplanes at the very beginning or not. And he himself, this Stoltenberg, said, no, we should not provoke Russia because shutting down Russian missiles, peaceful missiles, may lead to the Third World War, and still NATO hesitates to close the airspace, right? And of course Putin looks at those weak pussies and he thinks whether he should attack NATO or not. I think he will attack NATO countries like Baltics, for example. He will escalate, he will see the reaction, and the United States will not lend their forces there absolutely because of the Russian attack on Baltics. They'll still try to maybe negotiate, maybe apply more sanctions. But, Rubio yesterday said that all of the options of the new sanctions which could be applied on Russia are basically exhausted. So no lever on Russia any longer, it seems like. That's what they say. Yeah, that's the reality. By the way, NATO officially sends just some sort of the defense ammunition to Ukraine. The initiative for main military support comes from each country individually, or sometimes they unite all together around maybe some Czech initiative, maybe something else, but it's not NATO that helps Ukraine at the wartime. That's what Stoltenberg wrote there. Maybe I'm gonna record separate, more deep video about that personality Stoltenberg, because he's pretty much cringy, weak and ugly guy, who even now shuts down the support for Ukraine, because without Norway's guarantees, I think Brussels will not open the way for confiscation of the Russian assets, because they're afraid for their money. All of them want Ukrainians to fight, Ukrainian spirit, come on, you can do it, but this spirit and patriotism, it's not forever. And you cannot win the war just with the Ukrainian blood, with the Ukrainian lives of our youth. They all also want to live. Ukraine is not asking, oh, give us your armies. However, it is appropriate thing to ask, at least from the United States, UK, because they were part of the guarantees for Ukraine. So if you guarantee Ukrainian sovereignty, if Ukraine gives up nukes, deploy your army then to protect. No. Not even enough military support. We're speaking about the United States. They have lots of the capabilities, but just few they give to Ukraine. And now they call Ukrainians to sacrifice themselves for Germany, like Merz calls, yeah? Ukrainians should fight for Russia not to get there, yeah? Again, guys, it's just my personal attitude, personal experience. You may like what I say, you may not like. I say what I say. And the mayor of Kyiv, Klitschko, also says that Ukraine faces huge problems fighting soldiers as men flee abroad, says Kyiv mayor. And he even calls for lowering mobilization age. I'm 100% sure, my friends, that none of his relatives is fighting on the front lines. None of his business partners, nor he himself, are involved in the real action. It's kind of easy to call, go and fight, but show us an example. Yeah, I read some of the comments under this post, because it's my post from Telegram. Dennis, you're saying this stuff while also fleeing Ukraine, but I'm not calling anyone to fight, you know? I don't have the moral right to do so. And only Ukrainian warriors who are out there on the front line, they may say something about it, that they're not okay, that people are not coming. They're fighting, there should be more support from people or something like that. But at the same time, they themselves understand why it is happening. Because of the corruption scandals, because of the absence of the army reforms. I told you about the figures, yeah? 30,000 mobilized personnel per month in Ukraine, and the last month, 21,000 at least left the Ukrainian army. So you understand why they left. Lack of motivation, especially about those cases which were speak yesterday. If they really want Ukrainians, young Ukrainians, to fight, they need to show example. I mean, those officials like Klitschko, who is also freaking corrupt. I'm sure about it 100%. He was involved in the schemes even before there were some of the investigations. I do not believe any sort of the freaking Ukrainian official, including this mayor of Kyiv. All right, about negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, which were happening before in Istanbul. Well, because Trump is not forcing any sort of the side for continuing the negotiations, Russia and Ukraine decided not to continue those. Ukraine officially rejected any sort of the future attempts of the negotiations, at least till the end of this year. Ukraine describes its decision saying that Russia is not willing to really negotiate about something. And Peskov today mentioned that Russia will continue the war as there is no possibility for negotiations. Kyiv's statement about the cessation, it's the translation, of negotiations formalized its unwillingness to continue contacts. He said that Ukraine will have to return to negotiations, but from much worse positions. That's the usual Peskov clown. An interesting remark from the Serbian President Vucic. I know that Serbians, they mostly don't like this guy, me either, but he knows something in his analysis, let's say. And by the way, I do respect his decision. He said about it openly, to supply ammunition to European countries for them to send weapons to Ukraine. Well, he said he doesn't care where these weapons could be sent, even to Ukraine. They might sell their weapons to European countries. It's awesome. So Serbian president believes that a war between Europe and Russia is becoming increasingly inevitable. I also think like that, and yeah, I see the signs of it to happen. For example, Polish officials, they are saying about possible compulsory conscription into their army, that they should return it. Germany also wants to mobilize people using some sort of the lottery. Zelensky also says that Russia may attack NATO till 2029, 2030, something like that. He's also sure about it. So commenting remarks by French Army Chief Fabien Mandon, who warned a possible shock in 3 to 4 years, which is said. As I analyze the facts, I come to conclusion that a war between Europe and Russia is becoming more and more apparent. Everyone is preparing for it. Yes, I also freaking see it, not just Serbian president. I think all of the analytics are now speaking about this scenario, which is more than possible. He added that Serbia now finds itself between a hammer and an anvil, but must strengthen its army to defend. Oh, come on, who needs that Serbia in this war? It will be more global, and Serbia is not the part of NATO, not the part of EU. I think for them it will be easy walk if something big like that happen. Or maybe not, maybe everyone will be touched, including neutral countries like maybe even Switzerland or Austria, the country which is not the part of NATO, maybe, who knows. But I also believe, I'm almost sure that this war will happen till in the next 3 years. 3 to 4 years. Here I agree with this analysis, maybe even faster. We'll see. Well, guys, I guess this video was more positive. Yeah, some of the negative aspects were touched as well, but we have some of the good news coming, also from the front lines occasionally. And you know what? I believe that despite all of those external, internal factors, enemies outside, enemies within, Ukraine will still not lose in this war. And Russia will find itself disintegrated. I'm sure about it. It's the logic of the history that every empire like Russia, in that state, it cannot live for long. And saying that, my friends, thank you so much for your kind support, especially guys who support me on Patreon and membership of the channel. If you want to join Patreon, the link is in the video description just below. As for the membership, just press the join button. I think it's over here somewhere. But only if you want to do it and if you're able to. If you are out of those options, just press like to this video and subscribe to the channel. That will boost the video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.